First, Steve Yates. Steve's the Senior Research Fellow for China National Security Policy with Heritage and joins us right at the top of the hour. Good to see you. Listen, the stock market, again, 1,000 points up on the Dow. Investors love to see it. How big of a deal is it that we put this 90-day truce, so to speak, in place? What'd you make of it?
Well, first and foremost, I think this is the single largest strategic reset any president in a long, long time has tried. I think it's necessary. It will come with risks and fits and starts. I would avoid any irrational overexuberance about what has been concluded so far. I think it's very important start. It's necessary for the U.S. and China to begin talking, but nothing's delivered until you get past this first 90 days. I think the markets definitely, as you alluded, are going to like the temporary pause, but we have to see, what did the Chinese follow through on? Did they take in the sort of lesson of it was a mistake to agree to the phase one trade agreement and not implement any of the terms during the Biden administration? That needs to be picked back up.
Okay, so a couple of things there. I'm intrigued by your use of the word reset, so I want to follow up on that in a moment. First, the tablet on the actual numbers on this. You go from old to new, 125 and 145 to basically 30 and 10 is where you are on this. And now I want to play a clip from President Trump, because he was asked today before he got on Air Force One to the Middle East about, what about after the 90 days? Could we go back up? Here's what he said.
First of all, that doesn't include the tariffs that are already on, that are our tariffs, and it doesn't include tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum, things such as that, or tariffs that may be imposed on pharmaceuticals, because we want to bring the pharmaceutical businesses back to the United States.
And he did say, you could go substantially higher than where you were eventually. So he's trying to keep all his options open. And what do we need to see from China in the next 90 days to know they're serious? How will we tell?
Well, first and foremost, Secretary Bessent very interestingly noted that he was impressed that the Chinese delegation brought an authority on the fentanyl manufacturing process, and that seemed to indicate maybe a seriousness on clamping down on that. As a fentanyl father, I care an awful lot about that being true, but proof has to be in the pudding. I think if we begin to see some knockdown verifiably in some of the non-tariff barriers that Secretary Bessent and Representative Greer were talking to the Chinese about, I don't know how you measure that in 90 days, but they would presumably have some metrics that would show whether there's movement on that front. Then they would be able to kind of regauge. Do we continue where we are, or do we move things back up a little bit? But that's kind of where we would be in this testing period. But really, also the secondary benefit of this is it should put some gas in other negotiations, especially our East Asian allies and partners should want to get their deals in quickly to try to kind of set maximum positive pressure that China actually pulls through on some of these promises.
That makes sense. On the reset issue that you brought up earlier, what I was going to say is that, we used to always hear the term decoupling. Maybe say China and the U.S. kind of separate worlds, and Bessent today used a different term. It's strategic decoupling. It's not everything, right? So that was kind of interesting. So it's not, to me, we're not shut off to China here. That didn't seem like the goal long term.
Well, that actually is right from Rob Lighthizer book. He talked about strategic decoupling very, very frequently, noting that the most strategic things on which our national defense and resiliency need to rely, we cannot allow to be dependent upon a market that could be used against us in a time of crisis.
Right.
So that makes continuity's sake. I think this reset was basically picking up where Trump 1.0 left off and the Chinese veered off, and sort of adding on the fentanyl tariffs and this across the board 10% as the baseline. This is the floor that they would go to unless there is measurable progress, if I understand what they're selling correctly. That, I think, still makes China not like any of the others in the Sesame Street lineup and makes it kind of the focal point of resetting supply chains and trade patterns.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.